Friday, everybody. We appreciate you hanging out with us. I am Rob Ellis. He's Derek Gunn. We are Sports Take, and Derek, the countdown is on. I gave you the countdown off the top of the show.
Yes,
31 hours and 7 minutes off the top of the show. But who's counting until the Phillies and the Braves match up again in the NLDS? And we thought, who better to talk to about this matchup than the man himself? You could hear him locally on 94 WIP Phillies radio network. He does an amazing job calling the Phillies and has for a very long time. Scott Franzke. Scott, welcome to the show. How are you?
What's up, man?
Great, guys. How we doing?
Good.
Scott,
to see you, bro.
Pumped up, man. Very excited. I'm all, tonight's going to be a struggle. Just kind of like, let's go. Now, I'm assuming you're in Atlanta already.
Yeah.
If so, walk me through what today looks like for you in terms of like prep versus let me go get some air, let me play some golf, whatever. How does today look for you? How's it line up?
Well, they started early because I crashed early last night after the previous night went a little bit long. So, yeah, I've been up, I've done a lot of prep work, going through the Brave stuff, organizing notes and whatnot. And there's a workout later today at Truist Park and some media availability. So we'll all head out there and kind of take in some of the sights and basically pass some time and maybe get some dinner tonight. Just chill out and relax. Try to relax.
Yep.
Hey, Scott, is it possible this Phillies team is even looser than last year's team? I mean, not only do they go about their business, but man, it's like they had a whole new element of fun when they're rooting for each other, round in the basements, the enthusiasm they exhibit. Is it possible?
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty loose last year too. I mean, they were having fun. I mean, winning makes everybody, it's fun, right? And I think that sort of, breeds in and of itself. It kind of amps up everybody's energy.
Yeah.
And I do think when players are loose, they probably play their best. I mean, every player is different, and every person is different with how they handle things mentally. And some people, maybe if they have a certain task, they need to be really focused and on task. And, some of the distractions, people, joking and laughing around them doesn't go so well. But I do think these guys know what it takes. I think, they feel like they're playing some of their best baseball of the year right now. And so, yeah, I think they're pretty loose and pretty excited about this.
Scott, this year they go 8 and Atlanta takes the series 8 games to 5 here in the 13 that they played. But they obviously have in the back of their mind what happened last year and how they were able to take them out in the NLDS. So, and those games, by the way, 8 of those losses, a bunch of them were relatively close. How do you view this thing? What do you think the Phillies mindset is, knowing, look, this is a juggernaut team, but they were a juggernaut last year and the Phillies took them out?
Yeah, I mean, it was exactly the same spread in terms of games back. I mean, they were 14 games back last year. Each team got 3 more wins this year. And, the Braves have been incredibly consistent all season long from start to finish. The Phillies were not. I mean, the first 2 months, they just were kind of sort of wandering through the woods, if you will, and really obviously put it together in the month of June and kind of turned it on at the end. So, but I think they feel like, the results, whatever, a 5-8 record, I don't think that's really in their mind. I think what they come away with is knowing the Braves are really good. They're going to have to play well to beat them, but that they're capable of doing that. And they're capable of doing that 3 out of 5 nights, which is what it's going to take. It won't be easy. They're going to see Strider twice, and they're going to have, probably see Fried twice if if the blister thing is all right. But, you mentioned, Rob, how some of those games were close. Like in, what was it, the middle of September, the Braves came in when they clinched. They won 3 out of 4. They won 3 out of 4 at Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah.
The Phillies had 2 major comebacks. They didn't hold the leads, but they had major comebacks in those games. And I think those are the kinds of things that both sides remember. I mean, the Braves, you listen to the Braves people, and they understand what a powerful team the Phillies can be when they're on. And I think they, I don't want to say they fear them, but they certainly respect them for what they're capable of doing.
Scott, we always talk about lengthy layoffs, how they can affect teams in football. Do you think the Braves having this layoff affects them while the Phillies have had the 2-game series? Do you think that could play into their advantage going down there as well?
I mean, it can.
Yeah.
I don't know that it will. The Braves, felt like maybe there was some of that last year. And obviously they clinched really, really early and have just been didn't have a whole lot to play for. I mean, they even clinched the best record fairly early. So I know they've tried to do some different things this week and staging different sort of simulated games. I know they got Max Fried out for 5 innings the other day. Last night they were playing their AAA team at Truist Park. I know the Phillies flew in yesterday, and they had to wait to unload all their bags until the AAA club was out of the clubhouse or whatever. So
psychological ploy.
Well, no, I just think in one of those things that was the way it timed out. I mean, but I do think the Braves are trying different ways to see if they can keep players sharp. But I mean. There's no amount of exhibition at bats that are going to get guys pumped up for what is tomorrow. They're either going to be pumped up or they're not. So I don't know. We'll see if it hurts. I don't know. I don't know how you would quantify that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's a tough thing. Atlanta's been so good at jumping on teams, Scott, in the first inning too. I mean, their first inning offensive numbers are unbelievable. I mean, not surprising how talented they are offensively, but it's a real key is, and it's going to be for Ranger, which we'll get into in a second here, is just keeping them at bay early, I think. And then that keeps the crowd out of it and all those other things. But let me ask you about that. Rob announces that it is Ranger Suarez. And there's debate whether it was going to be Suarez, Sanchez, or Walker, I guess. Do you think that was the right choice? And how do you think he'll be? Because it's been a weird year for him this year, for sure.
Yeah, it has been a weird year, but he's fared pretty well against some of the guys in this lineup. There's not many. I mean, you look at Acuna's numbers head to head, hits Wheeler pretty well, hits Nola very well, doesn't hit Ranger much or hasn't for whatever reason. The Braves are incredibly dangerous against left-handed pitching this year. But I don't think Walker was a real consideration to start this game one. I think it was either going to be Ranger. I mean, Sanchez would have been a real outside the box kind of pick, but one that maybe you could make the case for. But no, I do think that Ranger is the right choice. It makes all the sense in the world. He's been in that exact same spot before a year ago, game one on the road, Truist Park, and didn't pitch great, but the Phillies won that game. So why not run it back?
Absolutely. I had jokingly said to Rob yesterday, I would not want to sit across the table from Suarez in a poker game. I think, he would never tip his hand. You don't know what emotions he's going through. I think he handles the big moments, national spotlight emotions as well as anybody could be expected. I don't think his demeanor ever changes. You know better than I do because you're with these guys from spring training through the end, of course. Am I accurate in saying this? How would you categorize him?
Yeah, I would say that's spot on. I mean, he's always been a guy that slows things down. And, you talk about those players. It's a weird cliche, but they don't have a heartbeat. I think the idea is that it's a nice, slow, steady heartbeat at all times. And, that's one of the things about playoff baseball that really shows up is the players that can slow things down, the players that can deal with the fact that, hey, the Braves, they're one of the great first inning offenses ever. Yeah. They're going to put points up, and it might happen in the first. And what you have to be able to do is mentally not lose sight of what it is that makes you successful and not panic. Know that there's game left. Know that there's opportunity left. And I think the players that do that the best are the ones that can really slow things down in their mind and not let it, sort of get out of hand, if you will.
Yeah, makes sense. Scott, I think one of the most impressive things about this team, there's obviously the big boys and there's Harper and there's Schwarber and, et cetera. But what they've gotten out of Rojas and Pache and even for that matter, when it comes to the younger guys with Stott and Bohm, I think, that to me, in addition to, I think they're a little bit more athletic and certainly they can throw a better defense at you is what separates this year. And we'll see how far they go. but this year from last year at least, and I think it's one of the reasons why people have such optimism.
I think to beat the Braves, they're going to need contributions from those type guys that you mentioned. I don't think there's any question that this team runs on Bryce Harper and his heroics, and certainly did last year in the postseason. But you know, remember back last season, Harper was so good he overshadowed an unbelievable October for Rhys Hoskins, and they don't have him this year. And you know, last year Rhys hit the big home run against Strider, but it was Stott who had a big double to get it started, you know, to drive in the first run of the game. I just think that those guys, you know, whether it's Marsh or Stott or Bohm, they're going to be called on in big spots because the Braves are going to take their chances with those guys as opposed to Harper. If they can work around Harper, they're gonna. And if they have that opportunity, that means, you know, Alec Bohm is likely to hit behind him most every day. It might hit in front of him if Fried's on the bump. But I do think I think it's going to come down largely to get, and I don't mean MVP, you know, 4 homers in 5 games kind of thing. I just mean when you get your one shot, you got to chip in. You know, you got to drive in that runner from second with 2 outs and tack on a run or get a run closer or whatever the case might be.
Aaron Nola's last 3 starts have been exactly what we had hoped to see from him all season long. What do you think clicked for him all of a sudden?
Well, he did make a little bit of a mechanical tweak, which is really kind of strange. He felt like he was opening up a little bit, and they kind of went through some of the video, and they discovered, believe it or not, he was looking. The pitch timer is on the back wall, you know, behind the batter, and there's one on the left and one on the right. He was always looking at the one on the third base side, and it led for his body to get a little too far open. So Caleb said, "Hey, let's give something a try." Caleb Cotham, he said, "I want you doing nothing but looking at the one on the other side, the first base side." And it got his body more closed and squared up with the plate, and he felt like his alignment has been much better since then. That, I think, maybe has helped. He seems like, you know, he's up on top of the ball more, and everything works from there for Nola because he's at his best when his sinker is down, when his changeup is down, and when his curveball is down. And I think one, you know, you talk to pitchers, a lot of times one leads to the other. If you're on top of the baseball and if you're thinking down with one pitch, it ends up being good for other pitches too that you work down in the zone. So, you know, Aaron, very encouraging the last few times out. And I, you know, certainly hope he can keep it together. You know, keep it because they're going to need him. I mean, if you're going to beat the Braves, you have to have some semblance of starting pitching, and so Wheeler and Nola are going to be huge.
I'm fascinated by it's the little tweaks, you know, and we think with major leaguers, they're just locked in and they don't know. I mean, they're human and weird things are going to distract you sometimes. That's really interesting, Scott. And kudos to Caleb Cotham for picking up on that too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's part of the process, right, for a player and a coach to keep the dialogue open and say, what are you feeling? Because it's the player that's out there on the mound feeling it. And then you got to come up with, you know, ideas for solutions. And this seems like a weird one, but apparently they believe it's had, you know, been a big reason for his turnaround.
That's awesome.
Do you like the 3 out of 5 format in the second round more so than the traditional 4 out of 7? I think, you know, some ways teams get cheated out of that second round. I understand the first round being quick, and I understand, you know, baseball is doing everything they can to condense more so than expand. Do you like the 3 out of 5 format in the second round?
I guess I don't love it, but I said this week, and not just because all 4 wild card series were 2-game sweeps, but it's really easy to lose 2 baseball games in a row. And I just think they're going to have to, at some point, consider the idea of shortening the regular season and giving these earlier rounds sort of the weight that they deserve. It feels so sudden death sometimes, and you know, I mean, I don't know. Tampa won 99 games for a reason. It's because they're good. And now maybe fans are just like, all right, that's the way it is. Like, let's, it'll lead to more upsets and things like that. Maybe that's what fans prefer. I just feel like sometimes for a team, it's like, wow, we just grinded away throughout September and fought, all this stuff. And then we're done in 2 days. It's like 48 hours, you're gone. It's over.
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know, even this series, a lot of people say maybe they should reseed, maybe it'd be better if they reseed it. And because, maybe the Braves are going to get bounced out in 3 days, right?
Right.
They won 104 games this year, and they could go in 3 days. And
look at last year.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, it's part of the beauty, I guess. I got to ask you about Rob Thompson, because not only do I think he pushed every right button in the Marlins series, Pache obviously paid off and left, et cetera, but he just so gets this group, Scott. It's kind of like Charlie Manuel. Sometimes it's not something you can quantify necessarily with like moves or something like that, but he just seems to be the perfect fit for this group. You get that same sense with him?
He's a perfect fit for players. He's a smart guy. He's a smart baseball man. He wouldn't have been in this game for 30 years or whatever it is. He's been on a bench and on a major league staff and all that. If he wasn't really good with the sort of the X's and O's, if you will, of baseball. He understands analytics. He understands all the things. He asks all the right questions when it comes to analytics. He doesn't blindly follow them. He wants answers. He wants the backstory for why a number is what it is before he's going to trust it wholeheartedly. Kind of the trust but verify, right? Mm-hmm. But I think why he's so good for players is he is so in tune with talking with them and making sure that they're comfortable with their assignment and comfortable with their role and comfortable with the next day's lineup. And for a player, little things go a long way, and players they want to know, right? Players can go off and prepare the way they need to prepare, whether it's in the cage or on the field or whatever sport it is. But they just want to know where and when they're going to be needed and what they're going to be asked to do. And then they can go do the work to prepare. And I just think the players feel like he's so good at communicating. He's so good at staying in touch with them. And he's so good at understanding.
Scott?
Will mean for the rest of the room.
Okay.
Right. If you take a player out of the lineup, how does this affect everyone else?
Right.
Right. Because all those guys are friends together. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If I do something to slight a particular player, well, I'm going to slight some others as well. Right. So I think he has a really good sense and a knack for all of that stuff.
I think a good example of that is left field. And it helps that Marsh is a team guy. He's the ultimate team guy. Right. But he very clearly communicated what the situation was. Like, if we get a righty that comes in there, a lefty, a righty that comes in, you're probably going to be put into the game. And we saw that in game one. Like and again, I know that goes on around baseball, but maybe not quite as clear as you're emphasizing it here with Rob. And therefore you got a happy bunch in there, Scott, that pulls for each other.
Yeah. I mean, there's other, there've been managers that are kind of hands off and they let players do what they do. I mean, now, don't get me wrong. He's got help in the clubhouse. I mean, I think we've all heard the story. If you've been around Philadelphia for any bit of time, we've all heard the stories about how in '93 Jim Fregosi could worry about the team, right. and the the lineups and all this other stuff because he knew he had Darren Dalton behind him in the clubhouse as a team leader. And Topper's got that. He's got team leaders. He's got quite a few. I mean, I think it starts with Schwarber. And kind of trickles down from there. But I think that's a big comfort for a manager, and it helps a manager to know that you got a guy like Schwarber in your corner, and then other players follow suit because everybody gravitates towards a guy like Kyle.
Mm-hmm. Scott, you're in the booth with this team every night. You're in every major league park there is to see. Do you get caught up in the energy that this Phillies fan base generates, especially in a playoff environment? I mean, because people talk about it second to none in the majors.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. trust me, it'll be loud tomorrow night in Atlanta, but it just won't be exactly the same. For whatever reason, it could be anything from the way the ballpark is constructed to how loud the fans are to how close they are to the action, all these different things. But it's pretty impressive. I mean, and any player will tell you it's a tough place to come in and play. The fans are really in tune with players' mistakes, if you will, and they know how to kind of maybe latch onto that and sort of highlight that. I mean, think about it. A pitcher, again, that's one of the things about playoff baseball that sort of defy the analytics of it all,
right? Because
analytics are supposed to tell you what will happen over 162 games, and a lot of times they do. But they're not going to tell you what's going to happen in 5 games with the crowd screaming down your throat, and you make a mistake, slider, you can't get it, you keep pulling it, and it's down and in. Well, then you got to try it again, and I got to try it again, and I got to try it, and it's not working, and it's not working. And with each pitch, the crowd gets louder and louder and louder, and the pressure builds and it mounts. And these are human beings, and fear might take over. Who knows what else? Fear of failure, fear of whatever. And then all of a sudden, it's a very, very human game in that moment. And the crowd's very much a part of that.
Yeah, no question. Look, Scott, you were here through 07 through 11 last year, but you mentioned right off the top, you may be slightly busy the other night with the celebration. It may have taken you a little bit later into the night. Does it ever get commonplace? I mean, do you just still pinch yourself when you're in the middle of something like that, the celebrations or the big calls like you had on the Stott home run, whatever? I mean, does that stuff still register, or is it just kind of, man, I've been doing it for so long, it doesn't?
No, I think it's something that we all of us in the booth try to make sure that we never take it for granted, because we've got a lot of friends of ours across the industry who maybe aren't going there. We ourselves spent 11 years not getting there. I think maybe early on, I did take it for granted, but not this time. I mean, I try to take advantage of everything, and every moment that there is, every moment that we're given, just try to embrace it and have fun and make sure I pay attention so that I can remember it later on in life.
I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to ask you this before. Give me one aspect of what you do that you enjoy more so than anything else, whether it's the prep, the calling the game, getting up close and personal with the players, whatever it may be. What's the one thing that you enjoy the most?
Believe it or not, I said this when I got hired in my interview with the Phillies. They asked me a pretty similar question. And the thing that I liked the most about it was I said the first inning and the 9th inning. And I still very much feel that way. I mean, I know a lot of stuff happens all throughout the ballgame, but there's still something awesome about starting the game and getting it underway. And there's so much greatness that happens in the 9th too. So whether you're down, you're still hopeful, right? There's energy and that kind of stuff. So, but either that or now at a different stage of my life, kind of sharing some of this stuff with my family and my kids.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, will we have you, LA and Stocker on the road here, Scott? What do we have?
LA, Stock, Tom McCarthy, and Greg Murphy, the whole awesome crew. We're all packing into the booth here. We have a nice large booth here at Truist, so it works out.
That's good.
You got LA to make the trip?
Oh
yeah, he was barking all day yesterday about flying. We got him down here.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, hopefully the game will get off right on time at 6:07 tomorrow.
You got it.
You guys are sticklers for that, Scott. I know that.
Yeah,
Scott, we appreciate it, man. We're looking forward to your call tomorrow night and throughout this hopefully long run. But we appreciate your time, Scott. Thanks.
You bet. Talk to you soon.
Take care, Scott. All right, that is Scott Franzke, Phillies radio play-by-play voice. Derek, I'm always appreciative of our guests, but I mean, I truly believe he is the best in the business. You listen to his
I
description.
second that motion.
Yeah, and he rises to the moment with big
Yes.
plays, and oh man, he's awesome. He is awesome. Yeah, it's fun. It's
It
fun. He
doesn't,
makes it
it
fun.
doesn't miss anything. You know, when you're on the road, it makes listening to a call of a baseball game that much more enjoyable, because what you can't see, you don't miss listening to in terms of details.
You're right on with that. You are right on. All right, so we go from Scott Franzke to the man himself, Ray Didinger.
Hall of Famer, baby.
Hall of Famer. So let's get a quick one in. We'll come back. We'll set our sights on the Eagles and the Rams and everything that's going on the first 4 weeks with the Birds with Ray Diddy. He's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let me tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances is critical, and it's challenging at the same time, right? So you got to get it right. And I found the right person, and I want you to have that right person as well, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business. You're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. Personally, I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollover to Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be as well. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751, or you could reach out to him via email, Murray, Murray.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim